Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be ranking every single zombies cutscene from worst to best. Now this will only include Aether maps, so chaos maps. 9 Void of Despair, Dead of the Night, and Ancient Evil will not be included. I'd also like to point out the ranking system for intros and outros are different. Intros are ranked by setup, how well the map, sets up the situation. Pickup, how well it picks up from the last map. Character development / introduction, and music. Outro or Easter egg cutscenes are ranked by Easter egg relevance, which is like what steps you see are relevant in the final cutscene. Character development / introduction, music, how well it wraps up the map, and how well it sets up for the next map. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the number 26 spot, which is going to be the Alpha Omega intro. Now, the reason this cutscene is so low is because it doesn't really explain what we're doing in the map. It doesn't explain why we're at Nuketown. It doesn't even show that we're at Nuketown, and it doesn't really show anything. It doesn't introduce new characters. It doesn't. Basically, all it's doing is just informing us that Nikolai is the new leader, and it's kind of him just monologuing for 2.5 minutes. So that's why this is the number 26 spot. Next up on the list is going to be the Origins outro or Easter egg cutscene. Now, the reason for this is because in all of my rankings, this was not there. It didn't set up for the next map. It didn't conclude Origins. I mean, you go from 4 legendary heroes fighting for their lives in Agartha to this random house with these 2 kids playing dolls. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, and it doesn't give you the satisfaction either for completing that entire Easter egg just for this. And at that time, in 2012 or 2013, when Origins came out, we didn't know what this meant, or we didn't know what this was. Now I believe we know it's either at Alpha Omega or Revelations. I'm not sure which, but one of the two. Either way, we didn't know what it was, and we didn't really understand why there's just 2 kids in this house. So for that reason, it's going to be number 25. Next up on the list is the Zetsubo no Shima intro cutscene. Now the reason this is so low is because we didn't really get an explanation from how they got to a medieval castle to a ship in the Pacific Ocean with Japanese officers who captured them. I think Maxis teleported them, but I'm not sure. Aside from that, we also have the setup. At the end of the cutscene, they're just swimming toward an island, and that's pretty much all we have at the beginning of the map, but still, it doesn't really tell us that we need to be, confronting Ultimus Takeo. Because in the end, that is the entire goal of the map, and if that's not explained in the opening cutscene, then how are we supposed to know that? So that's why it's so low. Next, we have the Shadows of Evil outro cutscene. Now, the only reason that this isn't any lower is because it actually does slightly set up the next map because Richtofen takes a summoning key. That's the only reason that it's not the lowest on the list, because it's about 12 seconds long, as you can see now, and really does not satisfy us or tell us what happened to the Shadows characters. So that's the reason that it's so low here. Next up on the list is the Buried intro cutscene. Now, from the first second, we can already see that we're in Africa. We can't really tell that we're in Angola, but that's not that important, honestly. But from the first second, we can see that, which is a nice setup to know where we are. But honestly, this cutscene is just boring. It drones on, and it's mostly just about them telling Russman who he is. And the setup isn't really there. I mean, they don't show them going into the facility or anything, but I mean, honestly, that's not really necessary. So it's okay, but it's not terrible. Next up on the list is going to be the intro to Der Eisendrache. This map does a good but not great setup on how we need to secure Ultimus Dempsey, as we can see him in the back of the truck, and he launches in the rocket at the end. We can see from the giant we've picked up, and we have the robot now, so that's nice, and we have some action as it blows up. We also have a bit of character development here in Dempsey as he expresses his distrust towards Richtofen, saying this wasn't how it's supposed to go continuously over the course of the map and the opening and outro cutscenes. So all in all, this is a pretty decent cutscene, not bad, but not great. Next up, we have the Revelations outro. That's right, it is this low on the list. We were expecting this cutscene to be like 20 minutes long or more, explain all those loose ends. We didn't get that. We got a 2-minute long, maybe even 1.5, of just Monty talking to the crew and putting that back into the Great War. And this is nice and all, but all it does is continue the cycle. So that's why it's this low on the list. Next up at the number 19 spot, we actually have the Revelations intro. This sets up the map pretty well. It, reveals that the Shadow Man is the main, villain, I guess, antagonist of the map. We have to defeat him by the end. He puts everything in ruin. We can see why everything is the way it is, and the Apothecans are around. We can see why there's zombies here. So pretty good setup. It doesn't really introduce new characters or anything or have great music, so that's why it's this low, but it's pretty good setup for as it is. So that's why it's this spot. Next up, we have the opening cutscene for the greatest map of all time. Now, this is not my opinion. This is an objective fact. I'm just kidding, but it's Dire Eyes. Now, there is some character development here between Stuhlinger and Richtofen as he argues with him, saying, "What if I don't want to mend the rift?" You ever think about that? Stuff like that, and it's pretty interesting. And then we have the at the end we have the reveal that it's sort of a cycle that they're going into as Richtofen resets them and their memories and their state of living every time that they die. So that's pretty interesting, and all in all, it's a pretty decent cutscene. So that's why it's on the spot. Next up, we have a cutscene with an absolute banger of a song, "Ace of Spades" by Motorhead. This, however, I think is the reason that it's kind of boring in my opinion. I know it's pretty cool to watch them fall through, but it's kind of long. But they did have to fit the entire song in it, so I understand. But it's a cool cutscene. You get to watch them falling, and you get to watch Nikolai fight a dragon. And the setup is pretty decent. We can see them, obviously. They've fallen into Stalingrad. We know they need to take care of Nikolai, and so for that's why it's 17 spot. At the number 16 spot, we have the giant intro. In this trailer, we get to see, first things first, Richtofen teleporting Maxis to Agartha and Samantha to the MPD, which is a huge event in our zombie storyline. So that is very interesting. And then we have, shortly after that, Primus Richtofen coming out of the teleporter and shooting Ultimus Richtofen in the face, which is quite a scene. So this makes for a very interesting intro cutscene, and obviously now there are zombies here and they have to defend themselves, which is just pretty much the entire setup. We don't really hear in this cutscene that they have to take a giant, all the way to Dreisendrach, but I don't think that's really necessary to be learned here. So I think all in all, this is a pretty good cutscene. Up next on the list, we have the Dreisendrach Easter egg cutscene. This shows a lot of character development with Dempsey specifically, and a little bit with Richtofen, but mostly Dempsey because he has to take control of killing himself, basically, in order to secure his soul, and that's just a burden he has to bear. And he talks about that in Blood of the Dead, and Zetsubou, even Revelations and Garad Krovi. He talks about how he had to do, something horrible in killing his own self, even if it was his ultimate self. After that's finished, they head off to Zetsubou no Shima, which puts this at the number 15 spot on our list.
For time and the world do not stand still. Change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past or the present are certain to miss the future.
Yes, that's right. The number 14 spot is going to be 5. This is because we are introduced to 4 all-new characters, being Fidel Castro, Robert McNamara, John F. Kennedy, and Richard Nixon. We know that there are zombies here because Ascension happens at the exact same time as 5 does, and Samantha sends Yuri, the Pentagon Thief, over to 5 while she sends zombies to both places. If that wasn't obvious enough, though, it's made very clear to us by Richard Nixon that there are indeed zombies here.
Only a few generations.
Sounds like someone breaking in!
It's just a storm, Dick. Sit down.
Oh my God!
Next Next up on our list is going to be the remaster of 5, which is called Classified. This is the only cutscene to not include any dialogue, and it shows the setup pretty well. It shows Dempsey accidentally firing the baby maker at the teleporter, much like the Wonder Waff in the original Derice, which is the reason that we went time skipping in the first place. The actually real reason that this entire storyline actually happened is that they overloaded the teleporter with the Wonder Waff. So now they're teleported, instead of to Grim Lake and to the moon, the Pentagon, where they have to really defend for their own lives against Samantha. It also features my second favorite song in any cutscene, second to one that you'll find out later.
Hey Sal, we must have been through this 50 times already.
And they'll go through it another 50 more, that's right. This is the Mob of the Dead intro cutscene. We're introduced to 4 all new characters, the mobsters, as well as good old Stanley Ferguson. Now the mobsters had a plan, which is very clearly shown in this cutscene, to kill him, steal his keys, get themselves out of there. Then Billy comes in with
Warden's private collection.
But in doing this, a problem arises itself. Stanley Ferguson turns into a zombie, and everything around them basically turns into purgatory. So they have to escape this madness, and that is where our map kicks off. A very good setup, some great new characters, and we can't forget Rusty Cage by Johnny Cash, which plays during this song. It is an awesome song for killing zombies. All around, an amazing intro cutscene.
What the fuck?
Next on our list is the number 11 spot is going to be Call of the Dead, in which we find ourselves in a zombie apocalypse, which turns out to actually be a recording studio, which turns out to actually be a zombie apocalypse. We are introduced to 4 all new characters, those being actors from the horror genre who actually play themselves in this map, those being Sarah Michelle Gellar, Michael Rooker, Robert Englund, and Danny Trejo. These 4 must survive the zombie apocalypse as their director, George A. Romero, has been captured by the zombies and now is turned into one himself. The cutscene explains everything I just went over pretty well, and who doesn't love a good kill and montage?
We're writing a new one. It's called Maggot Stack Massacre. This is a real nightmare.
Let's slay some stiffs.
As we breach the top 10, this spot has to go to the Garage Grovey Easter egg cutscene. This scene is full of emotion and beauty, and the achievement, being titled Love and War, captures that perfectly. In the scene, we see Nikolai, much like Dempsey, have to take his own life in the form of his ultimate self. This time, as opposed to Dempsey having to take himself out while using cryostasis, Nikolai is up and well, and he is unhappy about himself having to die. All he wants to do is sit in this little pocket dimension in this giant robot killing dragons and zombies all day, not having a younger version of himself come in and remind him about his dead relatives. This makes Ultimus Nikolai so unhappy that he shoots Primus Nikolai in the chest. Primus Nikolai then shoots his Ultimus version with a shotgun in retaliation. We also see how close these characters really are when we see Takio's arm resting on Nikolai's shoulder. Also, we see very few maps that set up the next map as well as this one does at the end. Next up on our list is going to be the Alpha Omega outro cutscene. Now here we've just received the elemental shard. Nikolai has become the leader of Primus, and Monty figures out their plan. He goes down to the basement and eats Maxis, and then Samantha and Eddie get teleported over to where Primus and Ultimus are in Nuketown, and Samantha is pissed. Understandably, as she just watched her father die, she says, "We're going to the house to kill Monty and burn it all to the ground." And that's what they do many, many, many times, but they always fail. They always die. Look at her though, ain't she just so cute?
We do not understand. The Earth, we saw it destroyed. Yet here we are.
You can't start off a cutscene with Samantha's lullaby and have it a bad cutscene. And this is a prime example of that. We see Ultimus in their cell after the events of Moon as they're teleported back to America. Then Primus walks in, and all 8 of them stand together as Nikolai informs them that they're going to fight the Great War. This is the ultimate. The cutscene itself was built to set up the next map. This is the ultimate setup cutscene. And I love it. It's amazing. It's like every time I just look at all 8 of them standing together, I get the chills. This is why Alpha Omega is one of my favorite maps, because you can just play as all 8 of them. That is the reason that it's number 8 on our list. Next up on the list is going to be the Zetsubo no Shima Easter egg cutscene at number 7. Now, in order to truly realize why this is such a great cutscene and why it's number 7 on the list, we have to look at 3 things: the character development, the emotion, the music, the beautiful, beautiful soundtrack, and the setup for the next map, which is so clearly defined in there that you can't miss it.
Who could be so evil as to desire another soul to endure such suffering? Who amongst us could be so dishonorable? Are you so blinded by your own loyalty? The orders came from the Emperor himself. My life, my path, is built upon a lie. This realm may have been corrupted and consumed by evil, but we possess the power to change things. The better tomorrow is only possible if we blow away the ashes of the past. None of us choose the means by which mercy will find us. But I am at peace. I understand what must be done. Will you be my kaishakunin? It is my honor.
One to go. Guess it's you next, Nikolai.
Nein. There is something else we must do.
So, we see Takio being told that the Emperor, the one he follows blindly with all of his heart, has betrayed him and is secretly evil. We find Ultimus Takio at peace and knowing he must do the right thing. We find Dempsey questioning Richtofen, asking him if Nikolai is their next step, which he tells him, no, actually, there's something else we have to do first, which obviously is Blood of the Dead. Speaking of which, that is actually the next map we have to cover. Number 6 is Blood of the Dead. And boy, is there a lot to cover. Emotion, music, the fact that the characters have to work together in order to survive, and you can see the parallels between this and the Mob of the Dead intro. In the Mob intro, the characters don't work together. The mobsters leave each other behind, and they close doors on each other, and they all end up dying. But in this cutscene, Primus works together. You can see Dempsey pull Richtofen up off the ground. You can see, Takio slamming the door for Nikolai as he runs past. And they're all working together, and eventually they survive. You can also see the emotion in Primus Richtofen when his plan just comes crashing down and he doesn't know what to do now. He doesn't have a plan. Also, seeing the Victus characters again was really cool. I could go on about this cutscene, but that's about what makes this the number 6 spot.
What? Are you serious? No way. Dude, that's awesome!
I can't really explain to you how happy I was to see that for the very first time when the trailer came out. I don't really like the Victus crew that much, but I really love Stuhlinger. I don't know why, he's just awesome. Anyway, that leads us to number 5, which is the Tag der Toten intro. And this cutscene perfectly shows our characters coming out of the cryopods, and then switches over to Ultimus and Primus, where they are at the campfire, and they're doing their thing which they need to be doing in order to secure a better tomorrow, which is drinking and eating and having a good time. Then we go back to the Victus crew as they're in peril. Zombies are attacking them and they need to get the heck away. So they jump into a portal and they go to Call of the Dead, or as we now know it, Tag der Toten, or Siberia. In the lighthouse, they go all the way down, and Stuhlinger hears Richtofen talking to him, and he says they need to build something called the Agarthan device, which is another thing that's needed to secure a better tomorrow. This is an amazing setup, and it introduces, or reintroduces, these awesome Victus characters, in some people's opinion, and that's why I think it's such a good opening cutscene.
Dr. Minty?
Oh, and we also see that Ultimus Richtofen betrays us as zombie Richtofen, while Nikolai has to ask Samantha to shoot him. The next one is quite a cutscene. The Blood of the Dead outro, the Easter egg cutscene. First and foremost, Richtofen dies. He's left on his own, alone to bleed out on the dark mechanism by his very friends who he came here for to save. That is just sad. And not only that, but also Nikolai is given a chance at leadership by post-Revelations Richtofen, who gives him the Chronorium and allows him to read it. This time, unlike the old Primus Richtofen we knew, he actually gives Nikolai a chance. I rate the music in this cutscene a 5 out of 5 because really it's the lack of music that I'm rating. Just look at this scene.
No, you can help me. You're a doctor. Wait, don't you know who I am? I have been witness to miracles and calamities. Dimensions born and collapse. I walk a path no other can take. No! I want to be me. Someone who did all the hard work! I wanted to keep going. This me. My slightest heart. You won't even remember.
I mean, the emotion in the scene is just moving, being left by your 3 greatest friends, and another version of you is just awful. It's horrible. They left him there to die, and then the symbolism at the end when everything goes dark and the lightning goes off. That's just beautiful symbolism. This is why I put this at the number 4 spot. As we breach the top 3, we find the Shadows of Evil opening cutscene. This introduced us to 5 brand new characters and had some incredible soundtrack.
I'll lead the way. I will show you the path. Only through me, the Shadow Man, will you find your redemption.
Incredible soundtrack aside, I believe this is the longest opening cutscene to date, which half of it is introducing the new characters. It takes such a long and precise amount of time to introduce these new characters to just really get us to know them. It's very nice. Immediately, it's clear to us why they're there and what they're doing. The Shadow Man explains to them that they've done wrong things and that they're now in purgatory and they have to help him in order to escape. It does such an amazing job of introducing us to everything, the characters, the situation, the who's in charge and who's just followers, which is exactly what an introductory cutscene needs to do. It's perfect as an intro. It's amazing, and well, there's very few better than it. And by very few, I mean only one. Introductory cutscene, at least. But, of course, that has to go to Origins. Gives us the full story of what's going on so far. Not all the little details, but all we need to know of what's going on to this point. 2 German scientists were working to harness powers for Germany's ultimate victory. It tells us in the first second where and when we are in northern France, 1918. And it tells us what people are trying to achieve. A couple of German scientists digging up 115 accidentally unleash a zombie horde which destroys their entire army, prompting 3 countries to send their best men to come and stop it. America, Russia, and Japan's own Tank Dempsey, Nikolai Belinsky, and Takeo Masaki fight, stopping it to the tune of Shepherd of Fire by Avenged Sevenfold. As we find ourselves at number 1, it is the Tag der Toten ending cutscene. This is the final cutscene in all of Zombies. This marks the end of the cycle, the end of the madness, the end of the perpetrated terror that our crews all have to go through. This is the end. It's over. At the end, we see Samantha and Eddie walking into the light to their new home. And that is beautiful symbolism in itself. We see all the characters happy. We see them giving their wishes, giving their what they really want. As Samantha and Eddie walk toward the light, and we get a glimpse of what might have been their happiness. What could have been without the zombie hordes and the apothecons and all this nonsense. What could have been their good lives. And as we see Victus sort of led in the dark. I mean, literally, the dimension that they're in just gets closed off. And even to hear a sincere apology from Edward Richtoff in the Ultimus version is unheard of. You feel so bad for them. It's just sad. And then You know, we see Nikolai destroying the summoning key, which closes off all the dimensions shortly after, obviously including the Dark Aether where they're inside. It's just sad to see them go, but they all have to die in order for Samantha and Eddie to have a good life, you know, to live a normal life, to live really a life at all. They have to commit the ultimate sacrifice, and that's really what this cutscene is all about. And that's really what the story is all about, and that's really what heroes are all about. Not to die in a blaze of glory, wielding, you know, the staffs of the ancients. It's to sacrifice yourself for someone to have a chance of something better. And that's really just beautiful. So in that, this has been my full, every single Aether Zombies cutscene ranked worst to best. What did you think of the list? Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? Did you think I was wrong? Well, guess what? It's my opinion, so I'm not wrong, but I might be differing to your opinion. Let me know your opinion in the comments below of what the best Aether cutscene and what the worst is. And if you enjoyed this, please leave a like and subscribe, because I worked for quite a long time on this, so I'd appreciate it. Anyway, I'm gonna go to sleep now because it's pretty late.
Let me think about it. Wherever I go, you know I'll be kicking ass.